Hello, everybody. Welcome to Amazing You. I am your host. My name is Rani Thanacoody. I am a certified clinical hypnotherapist using rapid transformational therapy method. I am a Mars Venus life and relationship coach, breathwork coach, past life regression practitioner, astrologer, tarot reader, and life force compassion practitioner. And today, I have the greatest pleasure and honor to introduce you all to the beautiful, to the wonderful, to the incredible Nancy Levin. Welcome, Nancy, to Amazing You.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much. And let me all tell you who Nancy is so that you get to know her better. So Nancy is a certified master coach, podcast host, and best-selling author of several books. And she was formerly the event director at Hay House for over a decade. Nancy is also the founder of Levin Life Coach Academy, offering in-depth coaching, training, and certification programs that are designed to support coaches to build sustainable businesses and help change lives, and including their own. So Nancy, would you please tell us briefly about your story?
Sure. So, when I talk about my story, I really have to go back to the very beginning.
All right.
My parents, before I was born, had a son who was born severely disabled.
Right.
And so when I was swimming around in my mother's womb, I was also swimming around in her fear and her anxiety. And so I was born, and at a time when there was a lot of focus on my brother's well-being.
Right.
And when I was 2 years old and my brother was about 6, he died.
Okay.
And so the imprint on me as a very small child was, better I be self-sufficient and independent and have no needs. His needs are more important than mine. And that I need to be perfect, because if I'm imperfect in any way, like he is, I will die.
Yeah.
And so at a very early age, I took on the responsibility of trying to heal a grief in my parents that could never be healed. And I took on the impulse to be more than one child for my parents. Yeah. So my not enoughness showed up in the form of I need to be 2 children to take up space that he left. Yeah. And these are really the beliefs that drove the bus of my life. If I fast forward to the day I met my husband, my then husband, it was as if he said to me, "Hi, I'm broken." And I said, "Well, great, I will fix you. I'm Superwoman." And the more we became enmeshed, and as our relationship progressed, the more I sublimated all of my wants and needs for his. Once again, his needs are more important than mine.
Yeah.
And this followed me into my career. You mentioned I was the event director at Hay House. I was there for 12 years, traveling the world with the greatest authors and minds and speakers in the field of self-empowerment. And I was famous for being the queen of the impossible. I was chasing all the gold stars of external validation. I wanted the accolades. I wanted the approval. I believed my worth and value was determined by what I did for others, what I achieved, and what I produced. And so I spent much of my life in my career and in my marriage bending over backwards to serve everyone around me. And along the way, I lost myself entirely.
Wow.
And, long story short, in 2010, I blew up my marriage And in 2014, I left my position at Hay House to go out on my own. I had done my coach training and certification while I was in my position at Hay House, really because I just wanted to know myself. I had no designs on being a coach. I had my dream job.
Right.
And yet, on the other side of my coach training that I did, I was unrecognizable. And I felt called and passionate to help other people get free, to help other people make changes in their own lives. So I went out on my own as a coach, as an author. I've now, my 6th book was published last year. And
congratulations.
Thank you. Yes. So I coach, I'm an author, I have a podcast, as you mentioned, and we are about to enter the 5th year of my Life Coach Training Academy. So Levin Life Coach Academy, certification and training for coaches.
That is wonderful. All the great things that you are doing now on your own. Yes. Without needing any validation from anyone. But
that's right.
Since you realize your own self-worth, how much you can do by yourself and how much potential you've got.
Yes.
And now you have unlimited potential to achieve everything.
Yes. And, when I look back at who I was then, again, I was chasing the gold stars of external validation. I didn't have a sense of self-worth. And, I used to think that that being boundaryless, having no boundaries, was what made me exceptional at my job. Because, I was famous for replying to an email before I even received it, So I really had to untangle from attaching my self-worth to something or someone else. And I had to recognize that ultimately knowing my limits and allowing myself to have those limits, recognizing that my wants and needs are valid. Yes. And, when I talk about boundaries, what I really talk about is, these are our own personal limits around what we will or will not do, tolerate, or accept. And in order to even know what our limits are, to know what's okay and not okay for us, we need to know where we end and someone else begins. Yes. We need to actually be in the presence of our own value and worth so that we can claim what is rightfully ours. And what I see time and time again is, we need to give ourselves permission to consider our own needs at least as much as we're considering the needs of everyone else around us. And for those of us who have at one time or still identify as people pleasers and peacekeepers and conflict avoiders and people who don't want to rock the boat, we don't want to put the attention on ourselves in that way. And so we disappear.
I can relate very much to that because I have been a people pleaser. Mm-hmm. And when we have so much trauma, it was like our survival mechanism to please the people around us so that we can survive. Yeah. You did the same as well, so that you could continue to live. But then we forget ourselves in that process. Right. Because we have to survive, so we forget ourselves, and in order to please the people around us, not to make them angry, to make them accept us, we are ready to do anything for them, and we forget our boundaries, we forget who we are, we dissociate with our body. It's like it's so much of the trauma that we've stored in our body.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And, when we're growing up, we really learn at an early age how to package ourselves to be digestible to everyone else around us.
Yes.
And so for me, a lot of the work I'm doing with students and clients is what I refer to as reinvention. And I define reinvention as the return to the essence of who we are before we started packaging ourselves. We all think that there's some part of us we need to hide in order to be loved and accepted.
Yes.
And we also want to be loved for the truth of who we are.
Yeah.
And we can't be loved for that truth unless we reveal it.
Yeah.
So it has to begin with, what is the truth nesting inside of me that I have yet to give voice to?
Yeah. And how did you discover that? Thank you, Nancy. How did you start that journey that helped you to realize that you have boundaries, that you have to value yourself, and you don't need that external validation?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it was really the process of moving through my divorce.
Okay.
I had really lived my life by the motto, never let them see you sweat.
Right.
And I had been projecting this image of perfection to the world. And I only wanted to be seen through the lens I gave people to see me through. And when I was in my own crisis.
Yes.
Ultimately, the choice point for me was, you can go back to sleep and live your life as you've been living it, or you can choose to take a different action, make a different choice, and live your life inhabiting your own life instead of everyone else's around you. And so that was really the moment when I realized, there is a truth that I have been suppressing because I didn't want to know the truth about myself. And I certainly didn't want anyone else to know the truth about myself.
Yeah.
And so I spent a lot of energy inside the armor. And what happens is that when we don't tell the truth to ourselves, we betray ourselves first and foremost.
Yes. Yeah.
So the long story short of and it's in all of my books. And if you listen to my podcast or whatever, you'll find it. But the quickie story is that I'd come home from a Hay House event to discover that my husband of 18 years had read my journals.
Yes, I read that. I saw that.
Yes. And so what he discovered is that I'd had an affair 8 years prior. And, I certainly didn't want to advertise that. I certainly didn't want to look at that in myself.
Yeah.
It was a coping mechanism that I employed to get myself through my marriage. But really what it was a bomb I set in my journal to detonate 8 years later because I didn't know how to get out.
Right.
And so I, to this day, am eternally grateful, 15 years later that he read that journal, because it is what woke me up to, I don't need to stay here. I don't need to keep pretending. I can actually move on with my life in a way that I live my life on my own terms.
Wow, that's beautiful. It made you realize who you really are.
Exactly. And it really gave me sort of the presence of mind to really be able to go within and begin to excavate myself, my experiences, to see how, so clearly the connection between my brother dying and me wanting to sort of save my now ex-husband, the link between that. And I mean, being with my truth is a daily practice.
Yes.
Being with whether it's meditating or journaling or whatever, or hiking, it's my practice. What's true for me today?
Yeah. Thank you so much for opening up and sharing that to the audience, because you are not the only one in that kind of situation. There might be so many people today watching us, listening to the podcast, who are in that situation, who have gone through a divorce,
Yes.
or who are still in a marriage that they are not happy, and
Yes.
they are scared to find the real them. So many
Yes,
people
I
are
do.
scared
Yeah.
to find that.
Yes.
What would you say to them if they are listening today? Because reinventing yourself, it's such an amazing thing, because I have done it, and we are on that journey always,
Yes.
but we have
Yes.
reinvented ourselves, because like I tell you, since I've been doing that work, I never liked peanut my whole life, but now I do love peanut butter. It's amazing. I'm discovering things, and now I like painting. I have put that. I used to
Wow.
like it, but I put that a long time
That's
behind.
right.
But now I am reviving back the things that I like and who I
That's right.
really am. So
That's right.
what would you, thank you, Nancy, what would you, I'm sure you have found so many things about yourself as
Yes,
well on that journey.
of course. And really, where I think we need to be able to begin is, especially for those of us who feel stuck or feel trapped or
Mm-hmm.
feel afraid, really what's happening is we are so other referenced. We are
Yes.
focusing on everyone else around us and ignoring our own needs.
Yeah.
So we're so used to thinking, what do they need? What do they think? What do they want?
Yeah.
What do they feel? And we live in a lot of fear of external judgment.
Yes.
The bottom line is, when we are fearing external judgment, it's only because we're already judging ourselves.
Yeah.
So we are judging ourselves, and we have Velcro for external judgment to stick to. When we are in right relationship with ourselves, external judgment has nowhere to stick.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first piece, is, where do I need to clean up my relationship with myself?
Right.
And it begins by turning the antenna inward. What do I think? What do I feel? What
Mm-hmm.
do I want? What
Yes.
do I need? Instead of the outward focus.
Yes. That's so true, because reinvention doesn't come from the external world. It comes from looking
That's
within
right.
ourselves, and
Yes.
and finding who we really are, and letting go of those beliefs that do not belong to us, and that do not serve us. Many of the
That's right.
beliefs, they
That's
come
right.
from our environment, from the people, from
Yes.
our schooling. So it's about now really re-examining. I like the word that you use, reinventing ourselves.
Yes. Yes.
It is a reinvention.
It is. It
Yeah.
is a reinvention.
Yes, and that's a beautiful journey to be on when we reinvent ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you so much, Nancy, for sharing that. So, can you
Mm-hmm.
tell us a bit more about the how to find our self-worth when we have been under so much trauma, when we have not been ourselves? How can we find that self-worth again? What can we do?
Yeah. So, for me,
Yes.
first of all, I do believe we are worthy simply by being here. Our worth is inherent.
Oh, yes.
Yet, we expend a lot of energy pushing away parts of ourselves that we don't want to be.
Yeah.
So, what happens is we become very fragmented.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I do think that the invitation of our worthiness, of our self-worth, is to return to our wholeness.
Yeah.
And so what that requires is, we need to reclaim the parts of ourselves that we've disowned. And this happens in the light and the dark.
Okay.
So I like to actually talk about this with an analogy of the moon.
Right. Yes.
So the moon is always whole.
Yeah.
However, we sometimes only see a sliver,
Yeah.
or a half, or we see the full moon,
Yes.
but we don't even see the whole moon because there's the whole dark side.
Absolutely.
But even when we can only see the tiniest sliver of the moon, we don't question its wholeness. And just like the moon, we are at times revealing much of ourselves or concealing parts of ourselves.
Yeah.
And so self-worth really gets boosted by reclaiming these parts of ourselves that we have disowned. So whether it's the quote unquote negative qualities that we don't want to be, like mean or needy or lazy or irresponsible, but also the light qualities, the positive qualities that we think we're not. So it might be courageous or creative or generous. And any quality we see in someone else exists within us.
Yes.
So if I see a quote unquote negative quality in someone else that I'm triggered by, it is a signal that that is something I've disowned and I need to reclaim it.
Yeah.
If I see one of the light positive qualities, like creativity in someone else, and think I don't have it, I do have it because I can see it in them. And so the question becomes, how do I cultivate that in me and reclaim that as well? And then to find the gifts in these qualities, even the negative. You know, I may not want to be called lazy. However, when I'm able to call myself, I am lazy, I recognize, oh, my laziness allows me to rest and rejuvenate and replenish. So that to me is the way we come back to our sense of self-worth, is coming back to our wholeness.
Yes, and I think that's so true, because that leads to then having boundaries
Yes.
for ourselves.
Yes, because once I'm in a place with myself where I'm in self-acceptance,
Yes.
self-trust, self-forgiveness,
Yeah.
and I know what I need, I know what's okay and what's not okay, and I'm willing to stand up for myself, then I can begin to set boundaries. And I want to share here that I have, my take on boundaries is one of empowerment and responsibility.
Yes.
So it's not up to anybody else to respect and honor my boundaries. It's up to me.
Yeah.
And therefore, no one else can cross my boundaries but me. We want to go into this, so-and-so crossed my boundaries. That's a lot of blame and victimhood.
That's true. Because
Yes.
we allowed them to do that.
That's right.
Yes.
So I stand firmly in my boundaries are mine to set, mine to hold.
Yes.
And it's not anyone else's responsibility but mine to ensure that I am honoring what I need.
Yeah. Thank you, Nancy. In a lot of cultures, a lot of Asian cultures, and I think a lot of other cultures as well, it's a lot of misconceptions, but that's what we've been taught, is to have boundaries or to think about you, it's selfish.
That's right.
You might have heard of that. But there is a limit to that, because there is so much we can give as individuals. We can't keep giving and giving.
Right.
Though in those cultures, they tend to, mostly girls are taught to be giving, to
That's
be.
right.
Yes. Can you talk a bit about that?
Sure. I really am on my soapbox to reclaim selfish, because we pride ourselves on being selfless.
Yeah.
And in selfless, we disappear.
Yes.
And here's the thing. It's never an either or. It's a both and. I am selfless and selfish.
Yes. Yeah.
And I believe that selfish, self-love, and self-care are three sisters.
Absolutely.
Job it is to support us in honoring ourselves. And when we are meeting our own needs and giving to ourselves, as counterintuitive as it might sound, everything around us flows more smoothly.
Yes.
And one of the things I like to share here, especially for those who have guilt arise at the idea of putting attention on themselves in this way, guilt is good.
Okay.
Guilt is an indicator that you're on the right track.
Right.
Guilt is a signal you are honoring what you need.
Yeah. Thank you so much, because we have to honor ourselves first.
Yes.
And then when our cup is full enough, then we can start to give to others,
That's right.
We cannot give from an empty cup, because we won't have anything to give.
That's right.
Yes, that's absolutely true what you said.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Yes.
And I would like to ask you, Nancy, what book or books have impacted you the most?
You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay.
Okay.
I
haven't read that one, so I will go and read that one.
Okay. The Dark Side of the Light Chasers by Debbie Ford. She was my teacher and mentor.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And the book, there's so many.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, I know. The book Broken Open by Elizabeth Lesser.
Okay.
And the book Heaven's Coast by Mark Doty. Those are the books that pop into my mind. Oh, and you know what the other one is? It's actually Mother Hunger by Kelly. Oh, yeah. Yes, by Kelly McDaniel. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, these are, I think, great books that I would highly recommend the audience to read, and I will go and get some of them that I haven't read either. Yes.
Okay. Yes.
And who has been for you the most influential person in your life, Nancy, and why?
My brother who died has been the most influential person in my life, because I began writing when I was 11 years old.
Okay.
As a quest to connect with him.
Right. Okay.
And so I have always felt drawn to be in connection and communication with him. And I do believe that is what, that has been like a guiding, North Star for me throughout my life.
Right. I am very sorry for the loss of your brother.
Thank you.
But he is here.
Yes,
with you,
of course.
In spirit.
Of
always.
course.
Yeah.
Of course. Yes.
He's always there. And I think he's your guardian angel watching over you. Yeah.
I do too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Oh, you're so welcome.
And what would you like to tell the audience, for those who are watching and listening, who are going through some really tough times at this time?
Yeah. What I want to share with you is that I believe that we are all the culmination of all the choices we've made in our lives up until now. So if we don't make a different choice, nothing will change.
That's true.
So I believe our present moment choices predict our future. Our present moment choices are the crystal ball.
Yes.
So if you want to know what your future is going to look like, pay close attention to the daily choices you're making, no matter how big or small.
That's true.
Yes.
It's the choices we make, but also the thoughts we think.
Yes.
And the words we say to ourselves,
Always. Always.
All these are important parts and determine our future, because the way we speak to ourselves, what we think of ourselves, the pictures we make in our mind about, because so many people are anxious and they create all sorts of scary pictures in their mind. And then it becomes a reality. So the choices we make are extremely important. Absolutely. In the present moment. Yeah. Because that's the only thing that we have is the now.
Yes.
So we use the now to create our future. Yeah.
Yep. Yes.
Thank you for sharing that, Nancy. That's beautiful. Everything you've shared today, it's so important. And if people put that into practice, their life will be transformed. Just doing small things, one step at a time.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
And before we finish, I would like you to tell us about the great things that you do, that you are doing, that you will be doing, and how can we reach out to you?
Wonderful. Everything is on my website, nancylevin.com. And, you know, as I've mentioned, I have a podcast, I have all sorts of free guides that you can download, and we will be enrolling in Levin Life Coach Academy very soon. So you can get yourself on the priority list on my website as well. I've got a newsletter, all the things are there, social media, everything's on my website.
That is wonderful. That's wonderful. I've seen your website, and there's the books that you've written.
Yes,
You've
and my
written
books,
so many
of course.
books as well.
Of course, yes.
Can you share with us some of the title of your books so that the audience knows some of the books you've written?
Of course.
Yeah.
So the latest book is called The Art of Change, and it's a guided journal. It's a very robust guided journal where I take you through the 8 dimensions of reinvention with teachings and then also opportunities to journal. I have a book called Jump and Your Life Will Appear, which is the subtitle is An Inch by Inch Guide to Making a Major Change, which is really for anyone who is feeling sort of stuck in a relationship or afraid to get divorced or wondering, should I stay or should I go, or stuck in a job. That's that book. I have a book called Worthy, Boost Your Self-Worth to Grow Your Net Worth. I have a book called Permission to Put Yourself First.
Yes.
And also Setting Boundaries Will Set You Free.
Wow. These are great, great titles. And I highly recommend the audience to go and read Nancy's books. They are extraordinary books that would help you on your life journey in transforming yourself, in reinventing yourself, like Nancy says. Yeah. Nancy, I would like to say a big thank you. I know you are such a busy lady, and I really, really appreciate the time that you took today.
My pleasure to be with you.
I'm so grateful because I have been on your workshops as well. So they are amazing workshops, and I would highly recommend people to follow your work, to attend your workshops, any of the works that you do, because it's really, really so life-changing, anything that you've been doing. And I would say I wish you continued success, Nancy, to keep doing the great things. And I look forward to hearing more of your successes, the future achievements that you are in the pipeline. I'm sure there are many. I'll keep an eye and I'll keep watching. And I will join some of your workshops as well in the coming month. So thank you to the audience for being here today. Thank you for subscribing, for sharing, and for being here, everybody. So I would say thank you so much, Nancy.
Thank you.
And you are most welcome to come anytime you want on the podcast, on the YouTube. And thank you to the audience. Have a great weekend, everyone. Bye.